I'll start doing some introductions. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the marketing director at Scriptation. I'm also joined by the product manager, Laura, who's over here. We have a fabulous webinar today featuring Tessa Blake and co-hosted by GenXX. I'm going to throw it over to Monique, who's going to give a little intro about GenXX and the important work that they're doing.
Yeah, hi, I'm Monique Sorgan. Welcome, GenXXers, and also everybody else. GenXX is a new initiative that we created to that I want to say I created with Susan Diner, Maria Burton, and Nandi Bo. And we created this initiative with the mission to create new opportunities and raise awareness of the generation of experienced, talented, and vetted women directors who lost out on opportunities between sexism and ageism. So if that is something that you relate to, if you feel like you fall into that category, or if you're an ally, please sign up at our website, genxx.info. We also have a Facebook page, GenXX, and tell your friends who are Gen X women directors as well that we have this new initiative, and we really want to make sure everyone knows that we are here, we exist, and we've been here all along. And we're so grateful to Tessa Blake, who is on our board and also is a Gen X women director, for doing this today. So, and thank you to Scriptation.
Of course. And I'm just dropping the link for the GenXX website so you can learn more about this awesome organization now. It's in the chat. And I'm going to throw it over to Tessa Blake. So Tessa is an award-winning filmmaker and director. Some of her credits include American Horror Story, Station 19, The Blacklist, who has recently helmed her first pilot for CBS Studios and her first DGA feature for Ignite Productions last spring. She is an AFI directing workshop for women's alumna, and her films have premiered at Cannes, South by Southwest, won awards at the Nantucket Film Festival, the Human Rights Watch Film Festival, and she's been honored by the Academy and released theatrically. Take it away, Tessa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Monique and the whole team at GenXX and the Scriptation team. Honored to be here. And so basically, first of all, I will not, just a little housekeeping, I will not monitor the chat, but Alex will. And so if, as questions come in, Alex, feel free to, pause me, let me know that there's a question in a particular area and I can slow it down and we can unpack something. I'll just reach out to Alex now and then to see what's happening in the chat. And Laura is our backstop on all the tech. So if there are questions you have that are not part of my process, Laura can demo that work. So I'm grateful for that. And yeah, as my perspective is as a person out of Generation X, and that means I learned how to prep on paper. I was always super, super technical. And in fact, I was like in the computer lab, and I was often the only female identified person in the computer lab in high school. I learned coding early on. I loved technology, which drew me in part to film and to visual storytelling. And I like working with the tools and cameras and lenses, and have shot my own stuff, though I'm not in any way a good DP, but I love technology. But when it came to transitioning from paper to tech, the tools that were available at that time just weren't flexible enough for me. They just weren't dimensional enough, with great respect to all the PDF apps, I just didn't understand why I would get a new script in and then rewrite my notes when it was faster to have a paper script with Post-its on the side. And as yellow pages came in, I just flipped the script, put in the yellow pages, whipped off my Post-its, put them on the pages that were replacing them, unceremoniously threw away page by page of the material that was the new material or the old material. And that was a really efficient process. So I didn't see a tool that was any better. And I want to say, like, the tools that we use for filmmaking, to me, are only ever in service to a process. Like the tools themselves aren't interesting. They're only interesting as they continue to grow us as visual storytellers, or continue to support the creative process and free us rather than hold us back, right? So I wanted the freedom of an iPad because my binder was really clumsy and clunky and frustrating. But the transition wasn't working. And then amazing, lo and behold, Scriptation came along, and Scriptation instantly did the most impressive thing I had seen any kind of tool do, which was the transfer of notes. And do I have a demo? I'm not even sure I have a demo of that. But it's such a regular part of Scriptation. It's the most straightforward part of Scriptation. You have your first draft, and then you get another draft, and your notes on the first draft transfer over to the next draft. And that was revolutionary and worth, at that point, changing my paper system to a technological system, which is now a long time ago. I've been a Scriptation user like pretty much from the beginning. The thing I want to focus on, and with a nod that there are, I'm sure, a lot of episodic television directors here, and there's some people who are not episodic television directors. I'm going to focus the way in which I approach the tool of Scriptation through the lens of an episodic television director, which is not what I am all the time, right? I am sometimes a feature director, and I use the tool a little bit differently. But for those who are not episodic television directors, I hope there's value for you in your own process too. But that's where the focus will be. Before I even get to that, though, can I just tell you Scriptation is amazing for everything? The other day, a legal document came in that had to be signed on the fly. And I very quickly just like the fastest tool of all of the options was to bring it into Scriptation. I signed it, another family member signed it, and I emailed it out right away, right? Using the like pen, the iPad, and Scriptation are incredible tools for all kinds of parts of our lives. So don't just limit yourself to working with script and script drafts. It's also just a great PDF format. And I also want to say, like, among the pro tips along with that, I use Scriptation as a giant document manager for all of the scripts. So I think with that, actually, I am going to share my screen. And it takes a second, but it gets there. Okay, great. So let me start with the document management part of it. Let me go over to Scriptation. So I had the good luck of being a producing director on this season of Station 19. And you'll see that I'm able to manage not just my scripts that I'm shooting, but all 10. I guess I probably gave up at 10 because the showrunner was doing it. No, look, there's a 10 folder, even then. So as a producing director, you're prepping with incoming directors, and having at the ready all the material for all of the scripts is extraordinary. So while I might still be able to lug around a binder, I definitely can't lug around 10 binders, right? And I'm often going from a day where I am working with a director on 703 in prep, 702 is shooting, so I'm going down to set on 702, and I'm looking at post on 701. And I want my scripts and my information for all of that. And here is the, like file tree. Let's see, hang on. So in it, I have, the material I need, and it's great for storing visual material, right? And we'll see, we download the document. I work across a couple different devices too. So look, there's this great visual material. And a really simple way that I work is that I then take this material, for example, for a new episode that I may be shooting or diagramming, and I very simply screenshot it. Your little screenshot sound. And then that image goes into, to do it on my iPad, I think, for it to be fast, my photos. And there's the image. And then I can start bringing that into other apps, but that's also an incredibly useful tool. So let me go back to, oh, you guys, the other really cool thing to know, if you're not using things this way, is that you can, at the same time an image is up, bring Scriptation up, right? Oh, and look, it's highly duplicative at this point. But I can be looking at my image next to the script, which I use all the time. And not only because I'm watching my text come in through production meetings while also having Scriptation open, though that has happened. So this is a really, I find this in terms of pro tips, an incredibly useful way to work as well. I also work a lot in Shot Designer, which I'll talk you guys through. And when I'm in Shot Designer, I bring Scriptation up and make sure I'm seeing my scenes that I am documenting here. So that is sort of like questions on that actually before I move forward. Does everyone know how to use this? I can now get rid of it and have Shot Designer up.
I just got a question about how to do the side by side. So can we do it again a little bit slower?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'm pulling this little bar guy up here, right? And what's the tool I want to bring in? Actually, let me bring in images. Nope. Nope. Oh yeah, there we go. So I'm scrolling through I didn't prep my images, a lot of pretty images of my child, and some reference photos. But I can also go to the folders here. I can play around in any app this way, or let me start a slightly different way. Oh, Joan's on my text. Hi, Joan. You must be out there somewhere. Okay, let me do this. You can also take the images and not just put them sort of as an overlay, you can put them side by side. So it just takes a little practice, like it's one of those little Apple glitchy things where you just have to kind of learn how it works best for you and your personal finger. But this is the concept, and I can organize what I need to see more or less of, and then take it all the way off the screen. One slight oddity: Scriptation, no, Shot Designer, which I use a ton, doesn't allow the side-by-side sharing. I can't get Scriptation population on the side-by-side, but I can put it in front. So those are just two Mac things, two iPad things. Okay, great. We'll move on from there. Let me stop screen sharing for a second and talk a little bit about process. Okay. So, yes, big plug for Shot Designer. Actually, I really love Shot Designer and I use it all the time. It's my other tool. I use the three tools that I use all the time are Scriptation, Shot Designer, and Artemis. And so Scriptation, we're talking about at length. I will show you some of my process on Shot Designer, but it's you can bring in overhead diagrams. This is not a Shot Designer seminar, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I highly recommend playing around with it because it's a great tool. And then Artemis is an extraordinary tool that allows you to look at lens sizes, lens lengths, and compose shots and frames. So those are the three. They're in constant rotation on my devices. And the second, before I go into full prep process, there's a sort of idealized version for me of all this where I just use one device, but I don't. I use three devices, which is sort of crazy, or if you count my phone. But the truth is, they all have sort of a different user need for me. So when I'm on set, I have one iPad, and that is my iPad mini. This is the little guy. And it needs to be updated with software. The iPad mini, I fell in love with. Brad Beaker told me the value of the iPad mini. It's small, it's light, it is a great device. But it's not my favorite tool for prepping because it is small. It's would I put the link of the last? Somebody will monitor that and tell me what to do. Oh, Artemis. Yes, we can put links for Artemis and Shot Designer in the chat. And also, by the way, I have a plug for a case, which is sold out most places, but you can still get it somewhere. I have a link. I can share. So the iPad mini is super useful to me on set, but because the screen is small, I prefer the sort of medium size iPad that I have been working off of to show you guys. And I prefer it with this keyboard. And it's a particular case that has a fold back, so my pen does not get lost. Hang on. Right, so the pen is protected. I have my name and phone number on it. This is a pro tip for set. Please label all your devices. It'll help you. And the great thing about this particular iPad case is that it orients in typing mode upright. I can't, it's sort of because of the cable, because I'm cabled, a little wonky, but you can prop it up upright and also type that way with this Bluetooth keyboard. So it's an ESR Ascend keyboard case light iPad compatible, which I think currently is only available on Walmart.com. Anyway, and then my computer, I just am really comfortable in a prepping office with my computer, zooming off a computer with my iPad to the right and my script there. Now, I could keep this all on one device, but I'm a kind of volume user of all three of these devices. So that's my process. Doesn't have to be yours. I know I really enjoyed in the middle of the pandemic hearing Valerie Weiss and Michael Spiller talk about Scriptation. And they were both super advocates of the single device that they felt the freedom of an iPad, just one, but it worked for me to have a few. So as a result of that, it impacts my workflow a little bit. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me go back to screen sharing. Actually, before I go to screen sharing, are there kind of, Alex, any questions I should address before we move to more show and tell?
You know, there was one quick question about your organization structure. Are you doing that in Dropbox before you're bringing into Scriptation, or are you doing it within Scriptation?
I'm doing it all within Scriptation. But I don't have to. I just, that's sort of my habit, but I'll show you, I think actually this part of it, I'll actually bring in a script from email and show you how I save it and why I save it the way I save it, because I'm doing it through Dropbox. So let's take a look. Actually, this is sort of perfect.
And then there's also 2 raised hands. I just want to make sure. John, did you have a question? I'm going to allow you to talk if you'd like to ask your question. Oh.
It's not a question.
Hi.
Hello, hi Tess. It's not a question. It's that in an iPad, another way to do a split screen is to move your cursor up to the 3 dots at the top of the screen, hit it, and then go down and it says split screen, and that's how I do it.
Oh yeah. That's funny. I do that on my computer, but I didn't think or know to do it on my iPad. That's so helpful.
Okay, that's all I had to say.
Thanks for the pro tip, John.
Okay, I am gonna go. Is there another question we should address before we go, Alex, or should I go into?
I think that was it. I think the other hand might have been a mistake. But yeah, if you'd like to ask your question live, feel free to raise a hand or put it in the Q&A box.
So I'm sharing again here. So let me show you an email share screen, and I preloaded it with the production draft. So let me actually take the whole screen. The production draft comes in and I open it, and if you can select in Mac where it should open to have this helpful guide that says open in Scriptation. Or if you do it a lot, it just ends up knowing that you mostly want to download PDFs into Scriptation. So I open in Scriptation. Now I have all of these options. So I have over time kept a lot of stuff just on the iPad. But when I started to really go mobile between 3 devices, I did what Scriptation recommends, which is to use Dropbox as the central folder. And then here's my if you get nothing else from this, please do this for yourself. The places I go regularly, I cheat and put an A before them, Scriptation. So it's the first thing I come up on an alphabetical list. The rest, I'm happy to scroll through alphabetically. But Scriptation is such a regular location for where these are saved that I have just cheated and put A in front of it. And then whatever I'm working on right now, so I'm going into Matlock on Monday, and I put A Matlock so I can come back to it easily. when I just wrapped station 19, it used to say a station 19 there. And then I have Scriptation demo and, you know, the rest of stuff, including DGA memos and family documents and all sorts of things that have user friendliness here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in this demo. In my document management, I say drafts for the script I'm working off of and scripts for the scripts that came previously. So let me show you what I mean by that actually. In Matlock, no, see, I called it I called it scripts. I lied to you. But hey, you know what we could do? We could rename something. Maybe I don't want to do that right now. It slows me down. I'll keep going here. But you can rename things and you can move things. And I find it a little bit, with so much love to Scriptation, a little bit cumbersome to move things around and rename them in Scriptation. So sometimes I will pop back to the Dropbox because I can just move things a little bit. Document management is so good on a computer interface. It's hard to replicate. So anyway, I have this drafted, right? And I can take a quick look and see how many pages it is. As all directors will say, too many. It's too many pages for 42 minutes. That's the first thing I know. And I'm going to come out of that because what I've done with this script, when I first approached this script, here we go. The thing that stood out to me. So my prep process is this. I read a script the first time all the way through with making no notes, and then I go right away again a second time and I make 1,000 notes and I start thinking about what are the first needs of production. Well, the first needs of production are always locations and casting, right? The first thing you're going to do as the director is get into a scout van and rattle around and try to find the locations that work best. Around that same time, you're going to be in a concept meeting where the locations and the needs of the locations are going to be discussed. And in a well-run production, you'll be in a casting concept call where you and the head writers and the writer of the episode are talking to the casting department about the character types, right? So the two most important things for me to understand in depth quickly in order to feed the needs of production are, what do I need in a location and what kind of cast am I looking for, right? So in this particular script, in episode 702 of Station 19, which is already aired, which is why I can show you this stuff, there were these very distinct, 3 distinct storylines that took place outside of our main sets. And they were a storyline about one character going to an Irish wake. It was a storyline about another of our lead characters going to a waspy funeral. And it was a third duo of our lead characters seeing to an incident out in the world with a volatile young man, right? So it was, when I read this, I was like, oh my God, how many days I'm going to be out? You know, how many days are I'm going to be on location? How many days do each of these locations need? Can I get the bar work done in a day? Do we need to bring some stuff back to set? People who, you know, work in episodic, these will be familiar questions to you that you're looking at right away, right? So what I did on this script, and I don't always do it, I believe that your prep, I have a framework for my preparation process. And then each outing, each time I prep, scripts need different kinds of preparation. So I'll lean more strongly into one area of my prep or another. In this case, I very quickly highlighted the locations in different colors. And the reason I did that is that the first thing I wanted to do was to create kind of quick and dirty sides. Just, I needed to know each storyline's, the integrity of each storyline, right? So I decided to make sides, which is one of the greatest, most amazing tools in Scriptation that I don't just use for making my daily sides. I use all the time for making quick sides of certain things I want to see. So I'm going to make some sides now. I am going to just take in, let's just take in the red house location ones, because that I knew was going to be our trickiest location. So I'm not going to be perfectly thorough here, but I'm going to give you a sense of what I do. The pink is distinct from red in this process here. And I think actually, this is maybe, you want to make sure you grab all your pages, right? So I'm going to now make these sides. So you saw how I got to this. And this, I'm going to actually say, I'm going to clean all this up, and I'm just going to say red flag house sides, because I just need them for my location stuff. And this amazing thing happens, and I'm going to put this in sides. And it pops up right away on the screen. So now I instantly know what my page count is, what the arc of the scenes are, what I need to accomplish here. And I also will do this. Where's my annotation? Nope. I will, so I'm not confused. No, I don't want to use the red. I want to use black, and I don't want it to be an arrow. I want it to be a line. Great. So now I'm going to erase this, except for, how do I do that? It's a little awkward, by the way, working off a mouse, you guys, with the iPad, which is what you need to do for the demo, but not how I normally work. So if some of this is a bit awkward, that's why. Well, we still have the arrow. Let's not worry about the arrow. Or let's look, you can change the arrow and change it to a line, except for you can't change it on that piece of it. Oh, hang on, guys. Oh well, we're gonna keep it an arrow. You see how it works. Oh my God, and now I changed it to blue. The fun one can have in Scriptation. In any case, let's change it back to black, and that is now a line. So I'm now isolating this part of the script out from this part of the script, so I see what the continuity is here. So I'll do that again. I don't care about the Irish bar right now. I just want to give myself a sense of what my page count and what my arcs are in this one particular location, right? So I'm just going through and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, by the way, in a scout van a lot of the time. It's not like a precious process. I just know when I get to the location, I want to be able to flip through this and flip through it with fluency and speak about what the needs of this actual location are, right? So this is just a way to use Scriptation kind of ad hoc and quick toward the needs of what you are first addressing in production. So, by the way, I got out of the scout van having organized my red flag house sides this way, and everyone wanted these sides. So I just, by the way, you can also very quickly share this. So I just sent a text to DP and AD, and they had the red flag house sides in front of them too, because they hadn't had time to do it, right? And so we were all working off the same set of sides, and we were instantly able to make stronger, faster, better decisions. So the only reason I'm going to stop to talk to you guys for a second, because it's sometimes fatiguing to have a screen up. Again, my philosophy is the tool is extraordinary. The tool is just there to make your process stronger, faster, more efficient. I mean, directors, we are in a constant, somebody phrased it brilliantly, like it's directing, how being misunderstood 1,000 different ways, right? Our job is to communicate with clarity. And paper and Scriptation and the notes and the sides are an incredibly useful front end way to communicate. So the other thing I do, and I will go back to screen sharing, but feel free if there are questions in the mix. This is a good opportunity for them. Alex, if I'm missing anything before I go back to the...
We're all clear for now, but again, yeah, feel free to use that Q&A box or play with us in the chat as well. Oh, here's our, is there, oh, you go ahead.
I just saw there's a reason to choose Dropbox. Well, I just did what my Scriptation friends told me to do on their very helpful FAQ page on the Scriptation website, which is truly super helpful. they recommend Dropbox, and what happens in Dropbox, and I'm not going to say with technical perfection, but in Dropbox, your changes across the documents are received more efficiently and better. There's a better way to say that. But Dropbox has a better job. They are a wonderful, they'll organize, they'll coordinate the changes on the documents best. Somebody say that better, Alex or Laura.
Laura, go for it.
So Dropbox, they have the best version history. That's one of the reasons why we like Dropbox. So you can go back in your Dropbox and see the way that a document looked with their auto save thing that happens in the background. They also just have the best connectivity, but you can also, it's all personal preference. So if you prefer your iCloud or Google Drive, or OneDrive, those also work. But my whole life personally is on Dropbox just because they are the best, they're the fastest, and we just recommend them.
Yeah. So do what they say. So just a plug, by the way, on for Scriptation, not sponsored indeed. Tech support from Scriptation has been so important I mean, it's so clear that Scriptation was evolved and created by people who know how we work. You know, we know how much document management there is, how many new pages are coming out all the time. Like this is, it's made by people, for people in this industry, by people who are in the industry and understand the industry. So I have had some, you know, in updates have issues, you know, that just inevitably, like we know this from all of our app use, right? We encounter issues. Scriptation is like an organization that is thrilled to know what issue you've encountered because they want it to work for you and they want your workflow to work really well. So I had an issue where I bring in images. We're going to get to my building of sides in a second because my daily sides, because that's such a crucial, Scriptation is my crucial tool in building my daily sides. So I'll show you how I build my sides in a second, but in my workflow, I must have access. I screenshot that shot designer overhead in order to bring it into my sides in Scriptation. And I ceased to be able to grab that image. And I emailed my problem and they were hard at work on it. But then I actually just like took my phone as I had the problem and you could see me working through the problem. And sent that, and like within an hour it was resolved, like no joke. And they're always looking for ways to continue to make the workflow really constructive for you. And so while they can't get to things instantly except for true problems, they are on it. They are our friends and they are on our side. Okay, I'm now gonna go to, I was about to do something. I think I'm going to talk about how I build my sides because why not, right?
We do have a quick question from it sounds like it's helpful to have slugs correctly done. As a director, are you ever going to, sorry, I don't know why I can't read today. Are you as a director ever going to back to script cord / writer asking for slugs redone so that everyone can quickly get on the same page regarding what you're suggesting for a single location? Maybe this question applies to low budget shooting more than TV.
No, great question. And the answer is yes. So I recently, episode 709 of Station 19, which will be airing in a few weeks, it was written, it's a giant wildfire. And as we're scouting, you know, you start organizing where things actually have to happen from. The writer has an imagination and I am also a writer. So I know aspersion cast in this. We all as writers kind of have the fantasy imagination of where things are, how they relate to other things. And then that has to be translated back into the real of the actual location that you've chosen, right? So compromises are made or new opportunities are found in each location all the time, right? It's written that there needs to be a different indoor, you know, door that they go in versus the door they come out. Well, the location that serves every other need doesn't have that, right? So then it's got to be rewritten. I mean, there's a constant conversation that is happening for me with the writer of my episode about how we designate the slug lines to make the most possible sense with production. So early on, I named this with the writer I was working with and my first AD, like, hey, can we start organizing the names of this as the resort area or the rigs area? And so we got very uniform slug lines that said wildfire dash rigs area, wildfire dash resort area. And so we were able to make much more sense of vast, complex material by organizing the slug line. So, you know, the director is like an interesting position between the imagination of the writer and the practical life of the cast and the crew, right? So we are in this sort of liminal space between what has been dreamed, what we have dreamed relative to what we saw, and then what needs to, how do we maintain those dreams and visions and ideas and create them in a real world environment. You know, I often think like we take these scripts and we like shatter them into 1,000 mosaic shards. And then we have to put them back together, you know, to create the sort of emotional experience that we had or we want to make happen. Right. So we are these sort of practical interlocutors between our imagination and the experience of watching something, right? It's an incredible responsibility to be that person. It's an incredible duty to realize a vision into a real world, three-dimensional experience. And my entire prep process is about how do I maintain what was so lovely or suspenseful or funny or witty or engaging in the read and shatter that into 1,000 pieces and make it, we have to make it super boring before we can make it interesting again. Like, you know, when your friends come to set and you're like, no, I still have, yep, scenes like that scene is finished, but I am still going to be working on it for 2 more hours, you know, or those moments on set where you're like, I'm sure one day I won't be shooting the scene. Sure, my life will continue and I will not be shooting the scene, but it doesn't feel like it right now. So we have to make it incredibly boring, you know, and technical and particular and practical and something you can communicate and something that you can disseminate. And again, these are the tools that I use to help do that, right? So back to those tools, I'm going to move into, well, let me say this in terms of process too. So I mentioned this very quickly, but my discipline when I get a script is this. I give myself 3 hours and I turn off technology and I don't respond to family or friends. And I kind of do a process that really honors I am the first audience of the script, which is to say the writers, particularly in television, have gone through so many iterations, right? They have hangnails from past drafts. They have decisions that were made early and then unmade. I get this material that we're going to actually work on together. And I have 7 short days in a network television drama to get the script in my bones, right? That is a vanishingly short period of time. And anyone who's come out of independent film, I mean, we almost never shoot. We prep for years. You know what I mean? Like our director time is like constantly reading and prepping and getting it in our bones. In television, you have this incredibly compressed moment, right? So how do you, right? Force yourself to create some kind of process that works for you. So my very first step in my process, I put it in Scriptation. I start my Dropbox folder that connects to my Scriptation. I name it. I've made sure I've had time to catch up on all the previous drafts or all the previous episodes. I say that with a little bit of an asterisk because I don't often have that time. So sometimes I just need to know my material. And then over the weekend, I'm going to be able to go back and read the previous scripts, right? But hopefully, ideally, this 3 hours begins. And it's a very protected 3 hours. And the very first thing I do is that I read the script without stopping. I gulp it. I don't make any notes. I don't stop at all. I just drink in the material. And then the second I'm at the end, I start over. And when I start over, that's when I make 1,000 notes and I highlight things and I think about, like, for example, what are the needs of the characters? I highlight what's said about each of the characters I'll be casting, right? Like, who are these people? What do they seem like? What are their reactions to things? And those notes, actually, this is what I will look at next. Those notes look like, this, there's nothing special about these notes. I mean, they're just little like questions, and this is, I'm sure, familiar to everyone, these little scrawly questions that are happening here, right? I just grabbed a few pages. I highlight who's in the scene. I make notes to see if I think other people should be there, even if they haven't been mentioned. I'm questioning decisions. I'm making little drawings. I'm thinking about the contrast. I'm thinking about the casting. I'm making notes where I'm like, I don't love that for that character. There's nothing special about what I'm writing here. The only thing that it is process, right? So that's my second part of this 3-hour block, is capturing everything I thought through my first read, the places where I was confused, like I am very fond of saying that confusion is the enemy of drama, but so is hyperclarity, right? So we're always sort of balancing these two things, and there are places on the script where you might engage in a process with the showrunner or writer to give us greater clarity, or you might think like, how do I play against the page? How do I create more subtext here? How do I make this a little bit more subtle, right? It sort of depends on the material you're getting and the taste and the tone. But these notes are super important bedrock in the second reading that takes a couple of hours, where I'm thinking about the location and I'm realizing like, oh, that location needs this, that character needs that. Wait. What is their actual objective in the scene? How does the scene move anything? What's the purpose of the scene, right? This is all of the scratchy, scrawly, and for me, it's handwritten. And it's great to have the tool, and I take my iPad, out of it, and I just hold it and I write on it and I have it in a sort of like paper orientation, and that's my second version of working on the script. And then if I have spent nothing more than those 3 hours, I hopefully have more time than that, but if I have nothing more than those 3 hours, I am prepared to then go into prep. Like I can go to a concept meeting having just put in those 3 hours, right? I know the material really well, and I've used Scriptation as this great helpful tool as I'm going through. And I'm not careful about what I say. I just figure, play around. All right. So then past that, my process, and I'm just going to take a quick moment on it before I get to building my sides. My process past that is that, I'm a huge believer in the most important element of anything is character and character choices, right? Why are they there? What do they want? What's in their way? Where did they just come from, right? This is old-fashioned drama school, like what is their objective? What is their obstacle? What are their given circumstances, right? What is the subtext? What is the purpose of the scene? Like true script analysis. And I do that on another round with Scriptation where I'm just writing in like obstacle, I'm just scrolling in little tiny notes, right? Those are the questions I'm asking myself, because the answer to everything production will ask you is held by the Rosetta Stone of the character's wants, needs, and obstacles, right? Do you want a red chair or a blue chair? If you've done your homework, you know the answer to that because it has something to do with the character, right? Like these questions of props, the questions of locations, the questions of costumes, they're all in the DNA of the prep process that is super old-fashioned, right? Like there's no sexy tool other than your brain and your pen, and in this case, my iPad pen, forcing me to do that homework, right? And I start there even as someone who loves camera, and loves frames, you know, and loves visual storytelling and loves sexy shots and loves cool edits. I love all that stuff. But if that stuff is there without it serving the character, it's just window dressing. It's just style, no substance, right? And for me, like, it must, all of those things are available to me, all of the sort of sexy frames I can possibly think up and gorgeous transitions. That's so cool. If they're not in service of the storytelling, it's just ego. It's my ego, right? Which is fine. We all have egos. I mean, mine is not hard to locate, but I really do endeavor, and I think most TV directors actually really endeavor to serve the story, right? So don't let technology get in your way. Don't try to prep the perfect script or make it look beautiful. Just try to make the tech bend to your will in order to serve you so that you can serve the story. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get into my promised sides here. Oh, I've changed the orientation of my, oh yeah, look, changing the orientation, have fun. Is this what I want to do? No. Oh, by the way, though, I showed you this a little earlier, just grabbing this image, it goes straight into my photos folder and therefore can go into Shot Designer, and therefore I can play around in Shot Designer and bring it back in for my, is this, nope. Here we go. I think this is right. Okay. Ooh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So I get sides every night. We all get sides every night. And this is what the sides look like, right? They, I don't know why, if I were queen of the world, I would make all sides be organized by the shooting order and not the script order. But most productions don't see it that way, even ones I produce. So you're stuck as the director with sides that go in script order. Super not how you're shooting. That already is annoying. I'm already going to make new sides because I want things to go in the order in which my day goes. I do a thing that Michael Spiller taught me to do, which is I make big number. I get these sides in, they've been emailed to me. I put big numbers on them because one thing that I'm sure Scriptation is ultimately getting to is that when you make sides, you'll be able to blow up the page larger and see the script number, but right now they're little. So I make them in a hot pink color or some other distinct color so that I can make my sides. And what we do
coming.
Yeah,
It's
I
definitely
figured.
coming. Don't worry. We hear you.
I figured. I have been asking annoyingly for long enough that I'm sure it's coming. Okay, so I have my sides and I've got, let me come back, let me pop back out. So I want to make sides on that. That's this little 4-page situation over here. I can go in there and I can either do edit or make sides, and I'm going to use both of these, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my sides. So what I'm going to make my sides, I'm going to capture all of these because my sides are going to be just like production sides, except for you can do this much faster with your finger than you can with a mouse connected to your laptop, but bear with me. So I make my sides and I hit make, and then I just do this TB so that I know that these are my sides rather than production sides. So I'm making the sides and yep, let's put them in here. Sounds good. Great. Now, one thing, did they all come in? I feel like I didn't grab them all. I feel like the first page didn't come in. Well, that's how it works. We're going to cut to my demo thing. This is like a cooking show, you guys. I've prepared some things in advance. Nope, I'm going to get rid of that. Here we go. So I did these sides, but somehow not all of them came in. Probably Kretschmer knows what I did wrong. I'm going to do it again. Ha. Oh, I know. I think I just didn't have all of the, I didn't have all the pages up. So here we go, because I do want to show you a couple little details about how to do this so that it makes sense to rearrange them. Because as we know, sometimes they're not, you'll have the end of scene 18 is on page 19 or for scene 19 and you need that. So here we go. TB. But wait, did I deselect? Something weird is happening. Is it because I'm gonna go to the cooking show version, I think, because I'm sorry.
Might have something to do with the screen share and Mac and using a mouse.
Yes, something's happening.
So something weird is happening.
Something weird is happening. So let's ignore that because here's the cooking show version where somebody has already sauteed the onions. So I have brought the script in and I have done something. I've created facing pages and I have rearranged it. So you know what? Laura, I think maybe if my orientation is part of what's the problem, possibly. Let me get back because it was working better before. This is a little granular. But I've now seen 4 and then seen 19, right? So I've organized them because, let me just do it on this. I've organized them by editing them. I have added facing pages. I have moved, save, do a quick and dirty. I'm gonna edit, I'm gonna move, let me do this. So I just grab that with my finger. So here I have that scene in front of that scene. I have this scene. I'm going to add another facing page. I hope this makes sense as I'm doing this. Let's just pretend I'm doing those 2 scenes. And then I'm going to edit. No, I'm not going to edit. I'm going to go into here, clean that up. And now I have this facing page. So in this facing page, I can go into my photo library and I didn't prep the shot designer version, but let's say this is a completed overhead, which I'll show you in a second. And I bring it in, right? And now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to capture some tone notes. So let's pretend these are my tone notes here from the showrunners. And I'm just going to very simply copy that. I'm going to put that in text here. I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to have my tone notes available to me. So already, even though this is kind of quick and dirty, and I will show you the tidier version, I've got something that's very useful to the scene, right? I can already see, I'm going to go ahead and limit that. So forgive me just because I quickly showed you the function of it and it's not precisely the script itself, but I'm going to go back and show you what I do with my sides, right? So, oops. I've organized them, I've put in facing pages, and then I have done this. I take the time the morning of to rewrite, or the night before, the obstacle, the objective, the obstacle, the verbs that might be useful in the given circumstances, right? I have in the week before organized my diagram, and I can blow it up and show where people are blocked, what my hero camera positions are, and I've added a little bit of the tone notes to it. So that I have this opportunity that we all understand of, like, we're walking between scene 4 and scene 19, and I can quickly catch myself up on what my previous plans were. So this is an opportunity for me to capture my preparation. This part, this section where I'm really looking at the character, sort of character intensive language that allows me to go and talk to actors with the specificity that I intend, has been in my process the whole time. And I can grab it when I have a lot of time. I'm gonna pop out of this for a while. I'm capturing that stuff early in an organized way in Scriptation or in a Word doc, but I often find that it's even better to just ask myself to freshly read the scene again. I've blocked it, I've organized it, I've answered all the questions about props, costumes, locations. I am now going to go be on set. I have a lot of backup on the camera side. I have a lot of backup on the continuity side. You have zero backup with actors, you and an actor, right? You and their character. So I try to let all of the rest of the prep go away. I go sit early on set. People who've been my producing director, John Kretschmer, will know that this is go and sit early on set, and I write this out. I type this out while I'm sitting on set. What again is this character after? And what's interesting is I get new information. I've really prepped it, but coming to it fresh, writing it fresh in Scriptation on the day helps galvanize and activate my own imagination of the scene all over again, right? It brings it from like, oh, I prepped that, a week and a half ago to very present. So the not final, there's other things to talk about. The other pro tip I want to tell you about the sides and the sides on set is that the reason I don't bring in, here, I'll share again. I don't bring in like you can build your own sides from your notes and Scriptation, which is a totally valuable thing to do. But I really treat that fully prepped Scriptation script like I treated my binder, which it's available to me. I can look back on it. There are images attached to it. There's overheads attached to it. There's scrawled notes. But it's mostly sitting on my chair. That's on my chair. Because today I'm working with today's sides, and I don't want all those notes coming over for today. I'm happy to have them. I'm happy to refer to them, but I love the new clean sides that come to you the night before, and I build my daily packet, my daily sides packet from fresh sides, because when the scene starts, this is what I'm working off of. And my pro tip for taking notes on set is that you keep it as simple as possible. So I go to highlighting and I don't write a note. I just write the area that I had a note because it'll come back to me. The minute the scene is done, I just look at these highlighted areas because I don't want to pull my focus away from the screen. I want to stay glued to the screen. I have my iPad next to me and I'm just quickly putting a highlight on it, but staying attentive to the performance. So I'm not missing something. And those highlights might mean a performance note or they might mean a camera note, but I will remember them at the end of the take. And you will too, I promise you. So don't look away. Don't write an elaborate note. Just highlight the section you know you need to go back to and need to give a note on. So I am super, I think let me see if I got through all my pro tips, and then you guys can ask as many questions as you want. Highlight and document management. Oh, one thing I would really like to mention is a brilliant producer friend of mine always said, go slow to move fast, right? And I really, really believe in this on set. I don't give notes early. I barely give a note after I never give an acting note after the first take, certainly not on the master. And I I don't even get deeply into camera notes after the first take because everyone needs a chance to solve their problems, and most of them know their problems. I give them a second take. If I get in there too early, communication gets very confused. I will sometimes give a camera note after the first take. No acting notes, and I hope you don't either, because everyone needs to feel their footing in a scene. And if you start giving notes early, you start getting people rebelling against you, you start getting confusion happening. Go slow to move fast. So when I give myself a 3-hour window to read the script and all I do is read it the first time, and it seems like I'm wasting time because I need to be making notes on this thing right away, you're not. You're the first audience. You must purely ingest it, bring it into you, have the experiences that you have. And then if you start right away making notes on it, I promise you, you'll be able to capture everything you felt the first time through. The stuff that you thought was great and really worked, you'll capture. The stuff that didn't work as well for you, you'll be able to investigate. But if you give yourself that sort of quarantined, careful moment, it will all get into your DNA. And then you'll be an effective director for prep, because as Mary Almas taught me, prep preps your departments. The prep process doesn't prep you, you prep you. You prep yourself on weekends and nights and early mornings. You prep you with the tools that you have. And my preferred one is Scriptation. And then you're available to allowing all the other departments to get prepared. And that preparation's not just because they need to shop clothes. It's not just because, and all of that's true. But that if the better prepared you are and the more prepared you are to prepare the departments, the actual safer our sets are. And I don't just mean because we're prepping stunts or we're prepping water work or we're prepping a drone. That's all true. But also, if you are better prepared and communicating with clarity and communicating early, it means everyone gets to go home earlier and drive safer and even kiss their kids at night sometimes. And that is on us as directors. It is crucial that we be incredibly prepared, because the more efficient we are, not just for efficiency's sake, we're there to tell stories. As a great scripty said to me, we don't make days, we make movies, right? But in making movies, we're there with human people who have human lives, and it's our responsibility, to the extent to which we're able, to allow them to breathe into their lives that are not their lives on set. So I take that responsibility very seriously. And I know, because you showed up on the seminar at 11 or 12 Pacific time, that you take it seriously too. So with that, I think I am open to any questions or comments or other people's pro tips. I know we have a little bit more time if we need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been incredible. We did have a question. I saw some people answered in the chat, but the acronyms OBJ, OBS, GCV, they just wanted some clarification there.
Yeah, so OBJ is objective. What does the character want? OBS is obstacle. What is in their way? GC, given circumstance. V are the verbs, right? So again, just old school dramatic analysis. And the verb, there are a lot of different ways to direct actors. One of them is certainly about activating their intention. What do they want in the scene? And those are verbs that go along with their objective. You know, to cajole someone is different than to comfort someone. To convince someone is different to berate someone. I mean, these verbs have different tones and colors, even though the action of them might seem the same, and the words will definitely seem the same. A different verb activates a different feeling, activates a different idea, activates a different strength of objective and intention. So the verbs are your allies with your objectives, you know. And could I briefly show my workflow? I don't know. Let's see. Shot designer. Yes, I will do that. I will do that right now. So that's what that means. So why don't I do wait, so the workflow question was sort of all the way through. Yeah, I'll do the whole thing.
While you're doing that, could you remind me what case you shouted out at the beginning? I'm going to try to find a link because a few people were asking in the chat.
Yes, it is. You know what? I should just drop it in the chat because I found the link and then it's a dumb long link. And weirdly, I think the only one they have currently is white, which gets really crappy on set. So I'm so sorry. But I think maybe if we all, I'm afraid they're discontinuing this model, but if we all buy them today, maybe we'll encourage them to keep the model going. Anyway, so, and I did buy a couple because I like it so much. But it does everything. It protects your pen. You know how so many cases your pen is like you're like around your bag somewhere or on the floor. It can go vertical and horizontal, which is an amazing workflow plus. The keyboard is great and it's lightweight. I love it. Okay, so I am now going to share my screen for a second, and I'm going to do the workflow of the shot designer situation. And I'm going to do that by going over to the Tech Scout pack here. So I have this, I did this at the beginning, but I'm just going to do it all the way through. So I have this Tech Scout, you know, director. Let me get to a better director's plan. Right, that sort of shows me with that something a little bit smaller to work off of. Oh, good Lord. Let's go with this. Okay. So I'm grabbing that image. I'm just screenshotting it, which is like the on button and the volume button together. I'm sure there are other ways to do it. Kretschmer probably knows. So I'm screenshotting it, right? And now I'm going to go into Shot Designer. And now I'm going to go into a new scene. And I'm going to find a background image and import the image. And I'm going to import the image from what I just took. Now you can save all those in folders, like so that you may not be screenshotting at the same time you're starting Shot Designer. So you can just organize your overheads into a folder in the Photos app. Okay, my little people, these little red and blue people, are far too large for this hallway, right? So I'm going to go back into Image Finder and I'm going to plus, 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 plus until I'm going to go even more because I've got this reference of those chairs and my little person has to fit in one of those chairs. All right. So now I've and now I'm scrunching it in with my thumb, right? I'm just making it smaller. Now my people, like if they were going to sit in this chair, they would be the reasonable size to sit in a chair, right? I'm moving my little people around. Now, one thing I've done, and you may have noticed in Scriptation, is that I have already color coded the characters in my script so that I know who's what, right? So let's say it's a scene with Andy and I use the 2 lines for female or female identifying. And I use the one, well, let me change this character. Oh, edit color type. And this is Travis and he's blue. Okay. So this is not a real scene. I'm just making this up on the fly. One thing I do is I bring down the background image so that I'm not distracted by it. And then I have a walk 2. I'm gonna do it. That goes closer. And then I insert after. Anyway, fun with this program is fun. And I'm going to add a character. Let's see. Let's add somebody here. So there's the dialogue, right? And then let's add a camera for fun. Let's say we started with the steady. Actually, I think I would probably start from here after, and then track 2. So I could write a bunch of notes about this stuff. I know this is not really, let's say steady. No, it's not working because some connective thing. All right, steady. Faster. And then I'm going to put that in the shot list. Now, this is obviously not very elaborate, but, and importantly, you want to label your scene. So I would add an annotation. Scene, again, with the weird thing here. Scene. And then I'm going to make that bold. I'm going to put pink around it because it'll help me see it. And then I'm going to save it, however I save it. But the most important thing is that I'm going to screenshot it again. So I've designed the scene, I'm going to screenshot it. And now I'm going to close this app. I'm going to go back to Scriptation. I'm going to go back to these pretend sides. Here, where's another facing page? I'm going to go to the icon that has the little mountain on it. And I can either take a picture of what's on my desk, which was totally, nope, doesn't have access to my camera, but it normally would if I weren't connected here. And I can either have saved this in an album, and I do have albums that are organized by shot designer plans, etc. So I could bring in an old one, or if I've just made it, I'll bring in this new one. and then I make it big on the page. That makes sense? That answer the question of that particular workflow?
I think that answers the question.
Right.
You kind of touched on this as well, but somebody asked, do you have any pro tips about blocking and how do you go from your script breakdown, locking in your dramatic verbs to beginning to block?
Yeah, great question. Blocking, again, crucially, character first. So once I know the objective of the character in the scene, I know how to move them through space, right? Like if I know what they need, both practically and emotionally, then I can do all kinds of great stuff to help myself on the camera side too. Let's say they need to get something out of a drawer. Well, there are two different places that drawer could be on the set, and I'm going to put those papers in this drawer so that they have to cross the room that way so that they have beautiful backlight and my DP will be happy, right? So blocking comes from character needs first. It's always motivated by character needs. And if it's not, you can really feel somebody who doesn't get the tone of the scene by how they block it. And producing directors will tell you that. You'll watch somebody block a scene and they're moving in space, but there isn't the sort of intuitive drive of character, and actors will start balking. You'll feel that happen, but you'll just also see that the fluency of the scene is not well met. So first start with my character logic. Who needs what? Where are they going? What do they need to do in space, right? And then the next question for me is, where does the camera go? And how I'm answering the question of how the camera goes is, what is the subtext of the scene? What is the tone and purpose of the scene? So again, a cool shot is nothing if it's not in service of the storytelling. This is a scene about, this is a scene that's in rising action that has a lot of urgency to it. And the stakes are growing by the minute. There are a lot of new entrances in the scene. The beats are shifting very, very quickly. That dictates back to me, what are my camera tools? What's the style of the show? Do they go handheld in these moments? Do they not? That might be an interesting way to go. Do I want to be more do I want to play against that urgency by creating fluent movement with the camera? Is it about hard, tight closes in my cut, right? All of this stuff, all of the questions in my visual vocabulary, my visual storytelling, I'm speaking to those only as related to what is the story and what are the needs of the story. So that's how I come to my blocking. And then second to that, how I come to my camera in service of the blocking. And then the third question are efficiencies. And these are important questions because you don't want to create a separate line of access, which creates a second, a third, fourth, fifth setup if you don't need to. You might need to. Sometimes it's important, and then you know how to time those scenes when you work with your first AD on the timing of those scenes. Like, I'm sorry, but it's really important that everyone go different directions in the scene, which means we have just a ton of turnarounds. We're going to need to give the scene 4 hours, right? Like, those things are important in your planning. And again, this is part of the overall keeping a crew safe, right? If you know a scene is going to take a long time, let's make sure it's on the right day, right? On a day where there are other scenes that don't take as long. And the only person who knows at least how many setups you're going to do, how many directions you're going to look, is you, because you're servicing the needs of those characters. That makes sense? Okay. Oh, do I give actors blocking first, or do I let them feel it out and see where they feel like going? I do a little of both, right? So knowing the given circumstance is a huge benefit to starting your blocking, right? So typically, and I believe in this workflow, you start with just the words. So everyone just reads the script. I tactically, Mary Lou Belli, I think taught me this. Maybe Joan. Anyway, go stand where you think the camera's going to go. And then the actors will intuitively work out the scene toward you as the camera a lot of the time. But once we've read the words, I announce the given circumstances. So I say, hey, so you just came out of the rain, right? So probably you have your coat on, probably you go to the coat rack first, and then you go see what they're working on. We haven't seen, I think your off-camera scenes between the last time we saw you is that you've been here at work. So I think maybe you're coming in from the kitchen with a coffee cup. And in fact, maybe you even hear that person come in. So why don't I give you 2 coffee cups? So you go and greet them with a second coffee cup. Now, I've planned all of that, right? But I've planned all of it from the given circumstances. And when I speak to the actors out of the given circumstances, as opposed to do this, do that, or I want you here, that I'm organically initiating their character process by bringing all of us into the same shared knowledge of the given circumstances. Once I do that, we have a pretty easy time blocking generally. I mean, once in a while, someone just is that person, and then you just, everyone saw what happened. And now number one on the call sheet wants to sit in the complicated armchair that's in the wrong lighting position. You just got to work with that. Sometimes you just have to work with that and be flexible. But my preparation is equal to my flexibility. The more prepared I am, the easier it is for me to give things up because I know centrally still what the scene needs. Like if it was set in somebody's living room and now it has to happen under a trestle bridge, that's fine. I'll figure it out because I know centrally what the needs are of the scene. That makes sense? Anything else that might be useful?
We did have a question about note transfer, and I understand if you don't have revision pages handy, but maybe Laura could help with that to show a quick transfer.
Yeah, I think I could. Yeah, sure. Let's do a quick transfer. Wasn't Laura, you do a quick transfer.
Okay, I can do a quick transfer. Let me just start sharing. So my documents aren't nearly as fun as Tessa's are. But if you download Scriptation for the first time, you will see 2 demo documents in there. Oh, I should be using my mouse. Hold on. Switching to my mouse. I do this all the time. There we go. So the way that it works is you have all of your notes on your OneDraft. You have all of your added facing pages like this. This is what it looks like if you use double page view so that you can actually see your added pages right next to any of your script pages. And then when you get your new version, you import it into Scriptation exactly as Tessa was showing you. And then while you're in the new version of your script, you just go to the top where it says transfer. And then you can select your previous draft that you were working in. So for example, the draft 1 that has all of your notes. And then if so you can just transfer your annotations straight on the free version of the app. That's like that's great. We want to save paper. That's the whole purpose of Scriptation. So this will just remind you that you're moving you're copying your notes from the first version of your script to the second. If you are a pro member, you can also just do pages. So if you only get a packet of the blue pages or the pink pages, we'll collate those into your new version of the script. You can also generate a compare scripts document, and you can transfer your bookmarks. I'm just gonna, we didn't really go over layers, but if you have layers, you can select all of those layers to move over. And then it's complete. So in the second version, you can kind of see that this scene header had originally been at the top of page 2, but this is an unlocked script. So when it moved to the bottom of page 1, all of your notes will move along with it. And then things like your added page get moved into your script as well. So that's our very basic show of what a transfer is. But when you have a 800-page document, it's a huge time saver. Take it away.
Awesome.
We also have another question from an anonymous attendee. Ooh, mysterious. What are the different ways you use annotations besides general notes and tone notes and blocking? Are you using multiple layers for things like stunts, characters, camera movements, or are you just adding those in your facing pages? New to this program and trying to figure out ideas how Scriptation keep me organized.
That's so great. And Scriptation does have everything that you have identified Scriptation can do. And in fact, there are a lot of great Scriptation videos. I do think both maybe the first one was the Valerie Weiss, Michael Spiller, Pete Chapman did one in 2020. And they are, like they're adding their storyboards in, which I do in facing pages on my sides, but I actually keep them separate before then. For me, honestly, you guys, like my sort of binder script, my regular script, I don't want it too cluttered, which is cluttered was very pejorative, and I know it works better for, that's a great thing for other people. For me, my method used to be on paper, that I would print the script at 85% so that I would have enough margin for post-it notes, and I would use the skinny post-it notes. And this is an insight into my brain. Those skinny post-it notes, the ones on the left were tone related or actor or performance related, and the ones on the right were production related. And my goal by the end of it was to be able to pull out most of my, certainly my production notes, my post-its on the right, because they'd been addressed already in production. So I was going in to set ideally with those things resolved. So I prefer to use Scriptation and to use my binder script as a kind of like scratch pad of my psyche, you know, and that it's sort of messy and intuitive and handwritten. I have used layers before. I certainly do use, what's the post-it or the sticky? I think the sticky is really helpful. I use the sticky rather than layers. So what I mean by that is like, and Spiller talks about this in that other presentation, you can write kind of a private note to yourself, and then it just has the icon of a sticky on it, so no one else can see, like, make sure they don't go soap opera here, right? And that's my private note that I don't want an actor to see, or I don't want, you know. So I think it's an incredible place to organize all your things. And I do that sort of through a version of document management, et cetera. But my binder script tends to not have all of that stuff. I'll create another document that has images in it. I'll create another document that is a pitch deck, et cetera.
Amazing. We also had a question. Nikki was asking, she says, thank you for being incredibly articulate. What is your advice for somebody who isn't as techie as you approaching scriptation?
Oh yeah. So I guess I really should lead with like, I am techie, but I also was really resistant to this tech because I did have my 85% printed pages with my post-its, which were genius. Like that was a genius system that I came up with myself. A couple things. One is play around with the technology when you're not working. Like kind of force yourself to do exercises with the technology and create sides and imagine, you know, get old scripts from television shows you like and imagine you're directing them because you know those sets well, right? Like and I did a lot of this, force yourself to know your process. And that is a process that technology should only be supporting, not dominating. Right. And so in order for it not to dominate, you just need to fight it until it works for you in the way you want it to work for you. So it is not imperative that you get scriptation right. Right. This is not, no one, I promise neither Laura nor Alex will grade us on our scriptation use. So I found that no matter, I mean, my techiness is honestly just a willingness to beat up the technology for my purposes. Like, how do I make it work? What do I want it to do? Why doesn't it do that? Maybe it does do that. Let me ask. So I have a kind of like brute force technological sensibility as opposed to a refined or, you know, and I worked, for example, I think layers is really genius, and I won't spend much time on it because I do not use it, but I used it a couple times to do like tone notes as a layer and production notes as a layer. And for me, it was cumbersome. For me, it was just easier to write all the stuff I wanted to write, and then I sometimes will color code it and color code it differently. So my biggest sort of piece of advice is a fearlessness and doing it when you're not kind of under the hard pressures of that 7 days on a drama or the 4 days on a comedy. Is that even possible? Do it when you are prepping a feature that won't go for a year, or you're prepping your short, or you're going to use it as an exercise. So that's sort of that's my big thought there.
And to your point, we love seeing people use tools in ways that we didn't design them to be used, because that gives us more ideas for features that people will want. And the hacks are like the coolest thing about doing these webinars. Like I love seeing how their process and how they use things. We did have another.
Say again. You
Sorry.
go.
I was going to say we have a few questions coming in rapid fire now, but we are winding down. But somebody asked, where do you put your notes when you go to editing? Do you give your best takes to your script supervisor?
Oh yeah. So my philosophy is that I really lean into there's the script you prepare, there's the script you shoot, and then there's the show you prepare, there's the show you shoot, there's the show you edit. I I think some of the brilliant script supervisors with whom I've worked are on this. I will, when I'm really excited by a take, say like, that's definitely the one, or that's the print, or I love the print, let's print for this performance. So I'll definitely give my script supervisor notes. But I also am kind of a print all person. I don't do 1,000 takes. I like to go, I mean, it's very, very rare for me to go over 5 takes. And that is the go slow to move fast philosophy, right? Like if I let everyone have a take without me giving any notes, I really, by the second take, things are so much better, and then I can start refining it. But I really like the editor. I mean, and it's interesting, Valerie, on that script, I just saw their Zoom again to remind myself of it, but she talks about how important it is to give notes to your editor. That's the direction of the tone meeting, or that's the performance she really wants to see in the cut. I kind of love getting a very fresh take on it. I really like having, even if, by the way, and they're brilliant editors on this as well. For whatever reason, I think most directors feel like, like retiring upon seeing their first editor's cut of anything. You're like, I suck, I should be fired. I'm so sorry, I apologize. I mean, there's just something about your editor's cut that never is quite, and then of course all the material's there and they've done a great job, but they've stayed precise to the script. And then over the 4 days that you have in drama, you bring it around to what you'd like it to see, but there is a moment of despair. But I still, even with that, don't want to front load the edit, because I want the creative contribution of the editor. I want to see what they saw. I want to see how they construct the scenes, because there's serendipity in that, there's surprise, and there are brilliant things I can learn from it. So I try to stay out of that process a little bit too, and not overly dictate what the edit should be on the front end. All right, we are winding down. Is there here's an important thing. Okay. How much of am I sharing my sides with production? I think is one of the questions. No, not generally. I share my overheads with my DP and my first AD, so they have a sense of how many setups I have. I often share with my script supervisor the whole sides, because they're such brilliant. They have such a brilliant eye for performance as well as everything else. But these sides are for me. I'm a big believer in sharing your diagrams and your camera plans, because it's a team sport and we can all help each other. And I also, anyway, those plans, everyone needs to know what direction we're coming from first. What is my main angle? So I do share, but share selectively. All right, I do not limit myself to 3 camera setups. I just limit my takes. I just try to be more efficient. So, but I think that's like a great, I mean, we could talk for like 94 more hours, by which I mean, apparently I can talk for that long. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate GenXX for inviting me to do this. And for the mission that they are serving. I think it's really important that we look at all forms of bias in our industry, be really thoughtful about them, work together to overcome them, and be supported and support each other as allies. So I really appreciate the work of GenXX. I am a rabid fan of Scriptation. It has created more space and time for me to dream and think and look at material in fresh ways. And I am so grateful to all of you, many of whom I just quickly from the chat know so many of you, and it's so lovely of you to spend time listening, and I hope it was useful.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, GenXX. Thank you, Tessa. This has been incredible. I feel like I need to just sit and digest everything now. It's been wonderful. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for your amazing questions. We did record today's class, and you will be getting a recording tomorrow, hopefully. Yeah, thanks, y'all. Monique, any closing words from GenXX?
We're just so grateful for all of this. This was so wonderful. And yeah, for anyone who came late, just also check us out at genxx.info. You can sign up if you want to be kept in the loop, or if you have any friends who need to sign up, please let them know.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And as always, if you have any questions, support@scriptation.com or help.scriptation.com. We have so many tutorials. I dropped some links to all the webinars that we mentioned in today's class as well. Check out our YouTube channel. They'll all be there as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest
Thank
of your
you. Take care.